Welcome to David Hockney, Ways of Working. This exhibition focuses on the artistic processes used by the British artist David Hockney. Spanning a period of over 6 decades of creative output, Hockney has experimented with painting techniques, drawing, printing, photography, stage design, and digital art created through apps and Photoshop. Through showing this diversity of Hockney's practice, we emphasize how such experimentation formed the basis for the development of his ideas, the way his art is made, and what it looks like. Central to this approach has been the artist's fascination for people and places, as well as an ongoing enchantment with the past. As you enter the space, paintings in oil and acrylic are placed on the outer walls of the gallery, such as Le Parc de Source, Vichy, 1970, Portrait of Sir David Webster, 1971, and Double Study for a Closer Grand Canyon, 1998. There are paintings that reflect Hockney's time at Bradford School of Art in the early 1950s, the Royal College of Art in the early 1960s, and works made during his stays in California and Yorkshire. Drawing is a vital aspect of Hockney's artistic process. During intense phases of painting, he always uses drawing as an accompanying medium in which he prepares for the final work. However, at the same time, he also gives drawing complete independence and considers it as having equal status with other media. As a result, his drawings are considered finished works in their own right. Here we see Untitled Study for a Painting, 1967. This watercolour belongs with a group of works in different media dealing with the behaviour of water. Hockney was fascinated by what he called the squiggly water in swimming pools. How a breeze could shimmer the surface, how a diver could create a bigger splash. Here he contrasts the natural quality of the pool's surface with the man-made surrounding pavement and the diving board. The watercolour also reflects his exhilaration with outdoor life in California. Also in the drawings section of the exhibition is this preparatory work entitled Study for Sur la Terrasse, 1971. The finished work was sold at Christie's, New York last year, and it features Peter Schlesinger. This drawing was created during a stay at the Hotel de la Mamounia, Marrakesh, when Peter walked out onto the balcony of the hotel room overlooking lush vegetation. Hockney immediately recognized an opportunity to make a large painting. Along with this closely observed drawing, Hockney also took a colour photograph of the same scene. The drawing and photograph both served as reference points for the painting he made that summer. By the time Hockney began painting Sur la Terrasse, his 5-year relationship with Peter was almost at an end. It is of no little symbolic importance that in this drawing and the final painting, Peter has resolutely turned his back on him. Le Parc de Source, Vichy, 1971, is presented along with a preparatory drawing. This drawing shows Hockney's use of the grid method to enlarge and transfer the image to canvas. Historically, many artists have used grids to assist them in creating larger scale copies. A grid is drawn over the original study and another grid is marked out at the desired scale on the surface where the image is to be reproduced, in this case the canvas. The artist can then copy part of the design that appears in each square at the new size. For the creation of the finished work, Hockney visited Vichy, France in September of 1969 with Peter Schlesinger and the English fashion designer Ossie Clark. Whilst there he recorded his travelling companions, seated with their backs to the viewer as they admired the scene. The third empty chair marks the artist's place. Rather than presenting the picture as if it were objective reality, he played with the composition of the scene. Hockney explains, "There's a strong surrealist element in the painting because of the false perspective, which is what really interested me. The actual trees there form a triangle, not an alley just disappearing into the distance. That's why the empty chair is there. The artist had to get up to do the painting. It's like a picture within a picture. I was going to call it painting within painting, like play within a play. That gives it the strongest overtones." Throughout his artistic career, Hockney has explored a wide range of traditional printmaking techniques. He has experimented with lithography, etching, aquatint and dry point, later turning to digital reproductive technologies. He uses printing to create original images, as opposed to reproducing images he has already made, his approach becoming a creative process in its own right. Hockney remains a prolific printmaker, constantly stretching the boundaries of different print media. He often combines traditional printmaking processes in one work and in others experiments with new technologies. This is fueled by his insatiable curiosity and his intuitive approach to drawing. We look at two swimming pool-based works now. On the left, we have Steps with Shadow, 1978. The work is from Hockney's paper pools series, which were made from paper pulp, a process developed by Ken Tyler, whom the artist had previously worked with. Ken encouraged Hockney to try out the new technique, which involved pouring liquid, coloured paper pulp into metal moulds and putting the resulting design into a high-pressure hydraulic press. This produced a unique image, which was part of the actual fabric of the paper, part print, part painting. He loved the physical involvement with his materials, kneading the pulp and adding dyes. The abstracted and heavily textured surfaces of the paper pools were to affect his approach to painting, as colour became the basic constructive substance rather than merely an additional source of decorative pleasure. The second swimming pool-based work is entitled Lithograph of Water Made of Thick and Thin Lines and Two Light Blue Washes, 1978 to 1980. This lithograph was produced during the same period that Hockney was experimenting with paper pulp. Hockney's depiction of water in his Paper Pools series is carried over into the medium of printmaking and drawing. In printmaking, the artist employs the same abstract strategies in representing the immaterial: water and light, transparency, and different kinds of liquidities. There is a section devoted to David Hockney's designs for the stage. In 1975, the artist had become increasingly interested in working for the theatre and spent much of his time during the 1980s and early 1990s creating designs for a variety of opera productions. Hockney has always adopted a hands-on approach to set design. His hand-painted scenery for numerous productions are in effect gigantic paintings with movable parts. They possess the same sensibility that prevails in his panoramic depictions of the Grand Canyon and the East Yorkshire landscape, conceived on the same ambitious, huge scale. One of the works in this section is entitled Parade, 1981. This is a screen print designed by Hockney for a trilogy of short French musical works. Hockney designed each production, and they were staged by the Metropolitan Opera House, New York, in 1981. Parade was especially important to Hockney because it offered him an opportunity to apply a spontaneous, painterly approach to theatre design. Hockney was inspired by a visit to a landmark Picasso exhibition held at the Museum of Modern Art, New York, in 1980, which included hand-painted designs for the theatre. The final section of the exhibition focuses on photography. Hockney struggled with what he thought were photography's limitations. He felt the camera's inability to see the world psychologically and from multiple viewpoints were its main weakness. In response, he created montages by making composite images of Polaroid photographs arranged in a rectangular grid. For these works, Hockney used a cubist perspective. This was an approach popularized in painting in the early 20th century, where the viewpoint constantly shifts as your eyes move around the composite picture. Hockney viewed his collages, joiners as he termed them, as a combination of painting and photography. Hockney began contrasting or layering photographs in ways that tricked the viewer's eyes into seeing things we would not see in an ordinary single photograph. This anticipated Hockney's digital layering and composing of images with computer software. A good example of this is Nude, 17th of June 1984. This was commissioned by the Hollywood film director Nicholas Roeg. It depicts Theresa Russell, Roeg's then wife, and was for the film Insignificance, in which she starred. It took Hockney 4 attempts with a 35mm Pentax camera to capture the images he wanted. Russell's body is fragmented, so one sees front, back, and side views simultaneously. As the image had to be assembled later in the studio, the success of the photo collages relied on his memory. Hockney assembled the images freely, overlapping and cropping them as he thought fit.
With great sadness,
The Lightbox closed the exhibition, David Hockney, Ways of Working, in March, in accordance with government advice relating to the coronavirus outbreak. The exhibition was a hugely popular show that looked at the artistic practice of one of the most influential British artists of the 20th century.